Hey guys, Jake Machine with Unknown Munitions here, and today I'm here to go over our new Tika rings, what comes in the box, how to pick the right rings, and definitely how to install them. Let's get it. Hey guys, Jake Machine with Unknown Munitions here, and today I'm here to tell you about our new Tika rings. I'm going to do a little unboxing, tell you about the tools and all the stuff that's in front of me, as well as actually do the full install on this rifle itself. So bear with me here, it's going to be a little tedious up front, but we'll do a little unboxing to start. Pull that little top there. So in the box here, you're going to get a little ampule of blue thread locker. You're going to get a baggie with 4 different pins inside. We're going to give you 2 threaded pins and 2 standard dowel pins. You're going to get a 9/64 screwdriver bit that's right here in a little slot in the foam. And of course, you're going to get your 2 scope rings. All the screws will be already hand tightened into the scope rings themselves, so we'll have to pull all that out. But that's the complete box there. If you want to get to the installation instructions, you're going to scan this QR code on the back of the box. That's going to take you to the product description on our website. Well, it'll break down step by step kind of what we're doing here. Additionally, in that product description is going to be this new install video, which will probably be the best thing for you anyways. So a little bit about the tools that you're going to need. This is our scope leveling kit that we sell on unknownmunitions.com. It's made by Sean Carlock at Defensive Edge. And in our opinion, this is the best scope leveling kit that you can get on the market. I think they're $59, but you can check those out on unknownmunitions.com. That's what we're going to use to level our Night Force NX8 today. We also use fix-it sticks for our torquing method. So we're also going to install the Tika level today, which is 15 inch-pounds. And the top cap of the rings is 25 inch-pounds. The side clamp on the dovetail is 45 inch-pounds. I'll just give you that info up front in case you're just watching the video just for those specs. So 15, 25, and 45 inch-pounds on our fix-it sticks. You can just Google fix-it sticks if you've never seen these tools before. But basically, when you're torquing a screw, whatever the set poundage is on this orange, green, or blue, it's going to click and stop rotating once you've hit your torque spec. So really nice tools. I do have a tap here because we did Cerakote this action, so I went ahead and tapped the threaded holes on the top of the action to make sure that those dowel pins are going to screw in nice and easy. They do come, when you buy a brand new Tika rifle, they're going to come with plastic plugs inside those holes on the top of the action. They do have a flat screwdriver slot in the top, but I found it easiest to literally just punch those out through the action into the inner part of the action. And you may end up with a little bit of plastic residue in the threads, which is where this may come in handy for you if you're that type of guy. This is a 648 tap. So 648 is the thread pitch of the holes in the top of the action. This can help you clean up your threads if you're having an issue getting those threaded dowel pins in there. I did mock up this Tika action for you so you can actually see all of the various pin positions that are available to you, because we're giving you those threaded pins as well as the dowel pins themselves. When I do the ring install for you, I'm going to show you kind of how basically we're going to mock everything up before you decide where you're going to put the pin, and then we're going to figure out the optimal position to put the pin once we see where our rings and our scope want to be for us. Again, that 9/64 bit driver comes in the set for you because it's a little bit of an oddball size. The thread locker that we supply, it's a brand called Vibratite, but it's not actually Vibratite that's in here. It's blue thread locker. It tells you on the front, blue thread locker is medium strength. You don't have to use the thread locker, but a lot of us that hunt in the field, a lot of us like to use blue thread locker kind of as some added security. It doesn't matter if you use our thread locker or any other blue thread locker you might have. This brand here is from Permatex. There's also the Loctite brand itself, but in general, any blue thread locker is a medium strength and is acceptable for this application. We do degrease the screws on your scope rings before they come to you. If you want to do some additional degreasing, or maybe we missed a little bit, use some type of degreaser, brake cleaner, something along those lines that doesn't leave a residue. So just be careful to research whatever it is that you use, like alcohol, brake cleaner, that's not going to leave a residue that may affect your application of blue thread locker. All right, guys, now is the perfect time to get your rifle set up, get all your tools out, get your gloves on, get your rags, get everything that I just showed you available, because we're gonna get right into the install, and just have me playing on your video, and I'm gonna walk you through how to put these on. So one thing I didn't cover earlier when we went through all this is basically how to pick the right scope ring height for your application. I did build a little chart that's down in the product description there, and basically you pick your objective diameter, you pick your barrel type, and intersect the two of those, and it's going to tell you what size you need. There are some caveats to that. It doesn't work perfectly for everything. For example, I just had a guy email me today because he had a 50mm objective with a steel barrel. He chose 30mm lows, but on his Tika rifle that he purchased the one with the big fat steel barrel on it, which technically is no different than like this application with this carbon barrel on this rifle. The steel barrel had the same contour. So if you have the heavy steel barrel on your rifle, whether it be aftermarket or factory from Tikka, you are going to need those 30 mediums. Basically, the 30 lows are going to work with the standard Tikka barrel contour for the light, the T3X ultralight Tikka setup. So I've got everything ready here. We're ready to do the install. I took all the screws out of the top caps here, and I loosened up the clamp. So we're going to call this the clamp, and this is the top cap. I loosened these screws up on the clamp, but I did not take the screws all the way out. So I personally like to put the screws on the non-show side of the rifle. So for me, because I'm a righty, I got a right bolt. I don't want to put the screws on the right side just for whatever reason, that all the action is happening on the right side of the rifle. So I'm going to put the screws on the non-show side, non-action side. And that's why we don't need to take those all the way out. So I'm just going to get them started here. And really what we need to figure out, so you can start to snug those just a hair, not all the way, so they still move. But we need to figure out, before we worry about pin, where the pin's going to be and all that good stuff, we want to get an idea of where the scope bases are going to end up with our scope configuration. So as I set this guy in here, there's some things to notice. Give him a little more snug. But you have, only so much space on your scope tube here for the rings themselves to be. You also need to be aware of your eye box. You must make sure that as you're finding the right position for this ring, that you don't get into this leading edge where the dovetail starts to flare out. So what I like to do is tighten those screws just enough to where it'll slide nicely on here, and make sure like it's stopping right there. Make sure you don't go forward to that position, or you're gonna stretch out the base and the clamp when you go to tighten up this ring. So just make sure you follow that, don't get too close to the front. So once you get a good idea about where you're gonna want your scope rings, everything here looks good for me. We're trying to avoid the ejection port as much as possible. This all looks great. So now that I have them there, I'm gonna give them a little snug so I know where they are while I'm taking stuff apart. Pull this guy back out, and now one at a time, basically I'm gonna figure out where I wanna put those pin locations underneath the ring, and what pin I'm gonna install on the action itself. Now we've given you 3 different pin locations on the bottom of the ring there. You see they're slotted so that you can slide it from one side without having to drop straight down on. So it'll grab the clamp still, the dovetail, and you don't have to slide straight down onto the pin. So we're gonna pick which one of those holes is gonna be the best for us. So I'm gonna use this front threaded pin location with the front hole on this ring base. So I'm gonna grab my threaded pin here. Again, you get 2 threaded pins and 2 standard dowel pins, depending on what location you're going with. I'm gonna thread this guy in. Now don't try to thread that in too far. It is designed to stop exactly where that pin is stopped in your screen there. The very top thread is not an actual thread, it's just a circle, and it's just wide enough to make that pin stop screwing in. So just make sure you stop when there's no more threads there. I'm gonna get my ring put back on. Again, you gotta find that hole. So it just slipped right into that hole. I'm gonna give this a little snug over here because he's not gonna be moving anymore. Now remember that we always want to push our ring base. There's not a lot of play between these pins and the ring bases, but anytime you're installing scope rings, you want to give that scope ring base a push all the way forward towards the muzzle. The reason is because if the scope ring is all the way forward towards the muzzle, the whole rifle wants to go this way. So they're both going to hit a wall, and that's going to help you avoid any type of ring movement once everything is installed. So again, pushing the scope ring towards the muzzle, the rifle wants to recoil rearwards. They're both going to hit the wall so that we don't have any movement. So I'm going to hold that ring forward while I'm just snugging up these two screws. We'll get to torquing those shortly. I'm going to follow the same procedure. You'll see we cleared the ejection port nicely up here on the front. I'm going to follow the same procedure here on the back ring. So I have a general idea about where I want them to end up. Again, the threaded hole, second from the front there, the threaded hole is going to be the best application in the middle hole on the scope base. So I'm going to grab my other threaded pin, get him started. Again, make sure you stop on that top thread. Don't try to keep pushing that bad boy in there. I'm going to slide him in. Oh, he needs to be a little bit looser there. There we go. So it's settled in nice. Again, I'm pushing forward on that guy while I'm snugging these sides clamp screws. Perfect. And now we are ready to torque those base screws. Those are going to be 45 inch-pounds. So I'm going to grab my 45 inch-pound fix-it stick. It's that orange guy there. And you're not going to see it on the screen, but we're going to go back and forth between the two screws, snugging them evenly until they hit that torque that you may or may not be able to hear. Basically, the fix-it stick just starts spinning once they're torqued. So don't just torque one, kind of work back and forth. Tighten them the same amount until you hear that click. And I always keep going back and forth a couple times. And then what I like to do is I'll actually come in here and I'm gonna loosen those 4 screws back up in a row, and then I'm gonna re-torque them again. This is a good process with any kind of fine torque application. You might have some dirt, some extra anodize, some extra anything that's somewhere in those threads or somewhere between the actual screw head and the flange surface that it's tightening on. You may have crushed it the first go around, so we're gonna go back through. Torque them again. All right, so scope bases are all installed and torqued on. We got our threaded pins installed there. I'm gonna set my scope back on here just to make sure we achieved what we were after. Everything looks great. We got good clearance underneath the barrel. Now we're ready to install our ring caps. Ring caps are pretty straightforward. We're gonna get all the screws set in place. And get them started. Now, one thing to keep in mind while you're tightening these screws is you don't want that cap shifted real hard one way or the other. You want that cap, the gaps on the side of the cap, to be fairly even on both sides. So just don't have it, extreme flexed over to one side. So I'll look down at it, kind of hold it even with my fingers here. Once that first screw kind of hits, I'll shift over to the opposite side. Then I'll check again. Gaps look good. Finish hand tightening the other two. I'm going to do the same process with this cap. Hold it centered so that the gaps are the same on both sides. Well, that one just touched. Move over to the opposite side, take up all the slack. All right. Those gaps are nice. I'm going to snug the other two up. no matter what scope you have, the first step is to make sure that the machined surface on the bottom of your scope is level with your turret cap. If you plan to use the turret cap as the place you're going to level, there are any variety of quality of scopes out there, so it's important to make sure that the machine surface on the bottom of the scope matches your top cap if the top cap is what you're going to use to level your scope. So I will hold this with my hand, the longer level, which is real nice on this kit, and then I'll put my level up on top of the cap here, and I'm going to swivel that, and you can probably hopefully get a shot from the top down, but basically what these levels are showing me is that this elevation turret is perfectly level with the machine surface on the bottom of the scope. That would be your first check. Now I know I'm good to go to use the elevation turret as my level point for the scope itself. I'm going to use the long guy and just set it up on top of the action. And in my rig here, I'm going to level the rifle as best as I can. That's about right. And now I put this level up here on this cap, which we know to be level with the true machine surface of the scope itself. And I'm going to turn that scope until it matches up with the two bubbles. And that looks fantastic. So hopefully you see good on the top down here and what Luke has here for you. But now my scope is leveled. I want to be careful when I'm tightening those screws in a crisscross pattern that the scope doesn't get pulled one way or another. In this installation that doesn't happen, but depending on the type of scope you have, we put nice radiuses on all the inside edges of the scope rings themselves to try and avoid that issue. But make sure you watch that as you're tightening. Just recheck all your levels and make sure everything's good. This would also be a good time to show you the application of Loctite. So I've broken up that Loctite ampule that comes with your rings, and personally I just cover the threads with the Loctite, something like this. Let the excess fall onto the rag. Like so. And then I would take that screw and I'd run my finger around the threads, make sure the Loctite's all the way in there. And then I would go straight into the rings with this screw. Now keep in mind that thread locker is an anaerobic sealant, means that it solidifies where there's no oxygen present. So anaerobic, without air. So down inside those threads where the oxygen can't get to it, it's going to lock up real nice, a medium compound, and really prevent these screws in any situation from trying to back out on you. Okay, so at this point we're ready to do our torquing process on the two top caps. Now keep in mind that I don't want to just torque one side or the other. We're going to do a star pattern. So we're going to start bringing these two the same way I just snug these up by hand. I'm going to do the torque process back and forth from one to the other here. We're going to pick the 25 inch pound fix-it stick. So I'm just going to give it a little tight, back and forth on these two. Oh, just heard the first click. Click, click. Now I got those two are good. I'm going to come in here and torque the other two that I haven't touched yet. Okay, all four are torqued. I'm still going to double check them again. Okay, follow the same process up front. So just do the two caddy corner screws, bring them down a little bit at a time. Oh, there's a click, click. Working my way to the other two. Do a full circle on that. Okay, so I'm the same way with the top cap screws as I am with the side clamp screws. I'm just gonna loosen these up a hair all the way around. And I'm gonna go and do my torque process again. So a little bit caddy corner. Tight, tight. All right, now I'm gonna do a couple circles. Okay, same process up front. Already loosened them. Okay, click, click. Perfect. So we also have this Tika level that's available to you. It's additional on top of the scope rings, but this is also going to clamp directly onto the dovetail available on the top of your action. Again, this is for purchase separately, so if you just want to run the level, you can do that. But I wanted to show you guys real quick, we had a lot of issues in the beginning when these were first released. Guys were really over torquing this screw here. This screw is torqued to 15 inch-pounds. That's all it needs. And again, medium thread locker is a great idea on this screw. But this is a very simple install. You don't have to take nothing off the rifle. So I wanted to show you, this way with the scope on. You just loosen up that screw a bit. And, well, I prefer it on this side, but get them going on your dovetail. Start to tighten that screw. Make sure everything is lined up great. That looks fantastic. Again, a little bit of thread locker on that screw. We're gonna do 15 inch-pounds on that one. The blue is my 15 inch-pound from Fix-It Sticks. And that's it. A little bit of thread locker on there, 15 inch-pounds, and this guy's not gonna move on you. You wanna jump up here and get a look at this? There's how it looks for you. This is in the perfect position to be right in line with your left eye as you're behind the rifle. Fantastic position. We also have the same level position on our built-in rings for our new Premier rings. So that's about it. If you guys have any additional questions about these scope rings, always feel free to reach out to us at Unknown Munitions. We have 208-262-6103. There's always a couple ladies answering the phone. You can also email sales or support at unknownmunitions.com, and we can help you out there too. Thanks for following along.